Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone. Mm, very good evening to everybody. Is anybody new here to Tushita? Welcome, welcome. The center started in the late 70s, started by an Australian doctor and a British woman and some other people who were hanging out in Old Delhi. And they had the good fortune to meet the Tibetan teachers at that time, who inspired them to start this center. We need this, do we? Okay. And we've been in this location, I think, for 25 or more years. And we recently had an upgrade. Things are looking very beautiful. And there's no damp or walls peeling off as there were last time I remember the place. So yeah, it's very auspicious. And the library also has good bookshelves, although it's not yet properly assembled. So you may not find the book you need easily. That will be, I'm sure, soon worked on. Anyway, before I talk too much more, I'll just have a sip of tea and then we'll have some motivation. By the way, any of you who are desperate for water or tea, is there tea at the back? So please feel free to take some. This can be a relatively informal session. And thank you everybody online. I'm sure there are many people, some people there who I know. So thank you for being there. Let's start with some quiet motivation, and then I might say a few things regarding motivation. But let's just allow at least for those of us here in Delhi, allow the turbulence and the busyness of the rush hour, people desperately trying to get home on roads that are no longer really, in many places, big enough for the incredible number of vehicles on our roads. So we can be grateful to be here, where we cannot even hear, at least I can't hear the main road, and where we are surrounded by at least images of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, which might be considered quite auspicious and conducive to calm and more noble thoughts. So allow yourself to relax. Let the body be still briefly. The mind and body to be relaxed. And the third factor, let there be a sense of wakefulness, being awake, vigilant. And you can connect with the breath. Simply being aware of the breath in the body. And as we breathe in and breathe out, let there be a sense of letting go and relaxing. Letting go of the pain and the tension of holding on all the time. And let there be a sense of fluidity and disillusion, if you like, a disillusion into space as we breathe out. Spaciousness. So, as a help for our motivation, before we start the session proper, let's remember the context. We are human beings, which is incredibly fortunate, although of course some may feel we're in an unfortunate situation in the world, but which may be so. But as human beings, we have this extraordinary capacity to not only be resilient, but to deeply understand our situation and develop empathy and concern for not only ourselves, but for others. We have the ability, according to the Buddha, to actually understand the root cause of our problems, the very root of it, not the symptoms, but the very root of it, and to destroy that root, to destroy the cause of all dissatisfaction, all, what shall we say, all suffering, dukkha, all that which is unsatisfactory and painful. We have the means to do that. All human beings have that potential, but if we look around, how many people actually have the time, the interest, the ability to spend even 10 seconds of their day on looking inwards and investigating root causes? Most people are rushing around just trying to survive, or just carrying on with the habits and the routines that we have built up over decades or more. As we know, many beings are engaged in trying to kill one another, which seems very strange, but that's the truth, right? Killing each other in all kinds of ways. Someone might say are quite cowardly methods. And then there's diseases, there's the climate catastrophe. Let's stop calling it just climate change. It's a catastrophe. It's affecting millions of people in the world. There's very powerful people who are acting very strangely. One would say unhinged, driven by fear, insecurity, narcissism, etc. So we have all of that. We have starvation in several parts of the globe, and malnutrition in many, many, many areas. So that's the context, okay? There's always been problems on this planet. It's not as though the time of the Buddha was some kind of totally pure golden age. It was not like that. There was great suffering at that time too. But everything is magnified now. Population has increased, more and more people are in pain. When I was born in Delhi, there were about 3 million people, perhaps, according to statistics. Now there are more than 33 million. So, all over the world, there is this explosion of everything. And such is the power of us human beings that we have managed to create substances that are there in minute particles, even at the bottom of the deepest oceans, in the digestive tracts of the strange creatures that are found there. So if you were some kind of benign alien from outer space, who happen to come across this part of the galaxy, the solar system, benign, I say, then you might feel you might feel very sad looking at the state of this world. So being sad is not enough. We need to engage in something which may be of help to ourselves and others. So our motivation could be that during the session, it's not a teaching, it is a sharing. I don't have the capacity to teach a Mahayana Sutra. These are apparently only very, very high level practitioners who begin to really understand such a sutra could teach it. But I'm simply sharing it for reasons which I will soon reveal. So by engaging in this together, may we create some causes for all of us to be of some little benefit to somebody, some persons, some beings, some animals, even some insects who need our help, who are suffering, who are in pain. And if we look from a sort of classical Buddhist perspective, if you like, then may we also plant some seeds in our minds that could ripen in the future as great happiness and great powerful ability to be of benefit to others. Well into the future. We're talking beyond just this life. So one could make those kind of aspirations as well, since we're only going to live 100 or so years at most. And there's, according to Lord Buddha and countless practitioners who have gone deep enough into their minds to perceive reality, there is beginningless awareness or consciousness, and no end to consciousness. Only our precious body will come to an end sooner or later. But consciousness, that's another matter. Matter. It's not matter, according to the Buddha, but you know what I mean. That's the point. It's not ordinary matter. Anyway, now we're having a very long motivation, but I think necessary. So, in other words, may the session bring benefit. Well, at the very least, if you are tired and hot, may being at Tushita bring you some temporary respite. Okay. All right. So, as I said, to be properly qualified to teach such a sutra, one would have to be a very highly realized person and also to have received the transmission of the sutra from a realized person. So since I have neither of those qualities, it will be a sharing. And hopefully it can help in some way, because the words of the Buddha can be extraordinarily inspiring, even if one is just passing them on, you know. That is their purpose also, to be inspiring and to help us move towards an appreciation of the teachings and to aspire to at least attempt to practice them. There's a lot of room up front, Navinji, please, and I can keep an eye on you. This is what I like to call our sleeping Buddha. he has the ability to quickly go into a special samadhi and still hear the teachings and remember every word at the end. Yeah, so a very dear professor from IIT. Yeah, special qualities. Okay, so why? Originally, I thought, okay, I'm coming to Delhi. I like coming to Tushita since I have a connection, and let's talk about maybe how to transform suffering and stuff like that. Then I said, I don't know how to transform suffering, so how am I going to talk to people about it? But then I'm living in Bodhgaya. I'm very fortunate, very fortunate. This is where the Buddha is said to have been awakened, where he awakened from the deep sleep of ignorance, which is affecting all of us apparently since beginningless time, whether we know it or not. And in Bodhgaya, there is the famous Mahabodhi temple, which some of you are familiar with. Some of you may not be so familiar with the Muchalinda tank or water body to the south side of the Mahabodhi Mahavihar, which commemorates the Buddha meditating there apparently, and during a storm being protected by certain beings. Anyway, there's a beautiful tank there with a statue of Lord Buddha in the middle, seated in the middle. And there's the parikrama, the circumambulation. You walk around, and on the western side, on the western wall, so I call it the Western Wall, as I don't know how many of you have seen the Western Wall in Jerusalem. This is our Bodhgaya Western Wall, and one great Lama, Tarthang Tulku, very great, wonderful Lama who has sponsored tremendous amount of Dharma activity in the world, and publications especially. His organization has put up more than 100 plaques, beautifully arranged, beautifully done, on black kind of marble of some sort, and then beautifully engraved, partly in Hindi at the beginning, just a short part in Hindi to let people know what it's about, and then at the end a little bit in Tibetan, but the main bulk of it is in English. And it is this sutra, the Lalitavistara, or the play, the expansive play, the play in full, which is the life of the Buddha. And I've always been, of course, having lived in Bodhgaya many years, very inspired by this area. And then, I would start looking more and more at the Western Wall with all these plaques outlining the life of the Buddha. And it's just so inspiring because of the power of the place. And at certain times of day, especially morning, early morning or late in the evening when it's not so hot, or in the cool weather, to go and just to start reading some of the verses on the wall, those plaques is, for me, it was very, very powerful. So I thought, since it's inspiring me, maybe it can be, I could also interest some people in this sutra, and also to go to Bodhgaya and look at the Western Wall there. Also, not just the Western Wall, but Tarthang Tulku and his organization right around. They have put the whole Perfection of Wisdom Sutra in 100,000 verses in the outer section, which not many people know about. You can start seeing it from certain places, and you follow it, and hundreds of meters of plaques on the wall of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, and also on the northern side in Tibetan, but the vast majority of it in English. So this is really something when you are in the right mood, you have to be in the right mood perhaps, and then you go there and you start reading it. Yeah, you are transported somewhere else. And one begins to understand why certain teachers who we are fortunate enough to be connected with, why they have such tremendous devotion and gratitude towards Lord Buddha. And so this has traditionally been a way to honor the Buddha and to be inspired. There's a place in the front, sir. Yeah, you can. If you feel courageous enough, there's a place here. But have water or whatever you need. Yeah. So. Yeah. So now, I can't remember what I was saying, but anyway, anyone remember where I was? What I was saying when I...
Introducing the sutra.
Huh?
You're introducing the sutra.
Yeah, I was introducing the sutra. Ah, thank you, Purvadi. So then, let's start with just some... I'm not going to give you historical background and all that. That is so clear in Google, just check Google. It's all there. Wikipedia, Google, Lalitavistara Sutra. It'll give it to you very concisely. Of course, many things are contested. No one knows exactly when these things were put down in writing sometimes, or there are different sources for the sutra. It's an amalgamation of different Mahayana texts as well. I was looking at some verses in it, almost exactly the same as some verses in the Flower Adornment Sutra, which is a very great Mahayana Sutra, the Avatamsaka. Identical verses. So, there's a lot of borrowing from here and there, but all purported to be inspired or spoken by Lord Buddha. So, first of all, just to give you a background, there are several lives of the Buddha. Some from a more, what we might call basic perspective, some from this perspective, the Mahayana perspective. What's the difference? So the basic perspective, just in short, would be to say, look, the Buddha, this being was born to this woman who was the wife of a king in northern India, bordering Nepal, and modern-day Nepal. And he was a very special person already when he was born. In his previous lifetimes, he had done many, many wonderful acts and then created a lot of positive energy. But basically, he was not yet an enlightened being, and he went through certain actions in his life, which we'll outline in a minute. And he sat under the Bodhi tree in Bodhgaya and became a Buddha, right? Became a fully awakened person. And there would be a very kind of straightforward sort of life there, which we would all understand, that he would see certain things which would disturb his mind and make him want to check what the source of pain was, where birth, sickness, aging, and death come from, what causes them, and so forth. Now, in this Mahayana perspective, we see something different. We see the world in a sense, and I'm going to start quoting from the sutra in a minute using my mobile phone. We'll see the perspective from a tradition, the Mahayana or the Great Vehicle tradition, which sees this being, Siddhartha, in a very different way. The Mahayana sees this being that was born in the 5th, 6th century BC as a being who was already fully awakened, was already abiding in the Tushita heaven. We have a very auspicious name of our center. It's the place where Lord Maitreya now resides, and where Buddha, the present historical Buddha, Shakyamuni, was before he took birth in his mother's womb. So the Buddha, already a Buddha, in the Tushita heaven, seeing very clearly what had to be done, where he was to be reborn, in what country, which place, to which family, so on and so forth. All this is given in tremendous detail in this sutra. And so a lot of it will appear to modern readers to be fantasy, a kind of Buddhist science fiction, to be very extraordinary. We're talking, and we'll when we read things, we will get a feeling for it. So I would like you to extend your imagination. And if you are a very down-to-earth, practical, what shall I say? I was going to use astrological language, but maybe I won't. I don't know. Many of my friends are born in September, which is a month renowned for, at least astrologically, people in the Western astrology who are very, very down-to-earth, nitpicking, often quite critical, into facts and so forth. So for people like that, this may be far too fantastical, some of these aspects of this sutra. And so we have to understand that Buddhism, in general, is looking at how we perceive the world. How do we perceive the world? What I perceive, is it necessarily the same as what you perceive, or is it necessarily the same as what a highly realized person who is engaged in thousands and thousands of hours of meditation is perceiving? What does a high bodhisattva being perceive? What does a Buddha perceive? This sutra is said to be the vision of someone who is at a very high level, we call it maybe 10th level bodhisattva level, which is very high level of awakening already, almost a Buddha. So we're seeing the world from that perspective, So you have to understand that and begin to enlarge what we might call our capacity to enlarge our vision, not be afraid to enlarge our vision about what the world is or is not, or what could be possible and what is not possible. Any of you here enjoy science fiction? I'm sure. So then, yeah, you already have a basis, we like big events. We like big events in India and in the world. I mean, so just think of when some of the verses of this sutra are read out, imagine something very vast, very splendid, very amazing that we, due to our lack of excellent karmic energy, we cannot see a lot of things which Buddhas and highly realized bodhisattvas can see. A bodhisattva is someone who has totally dedicated their life to awakening others. So they have a very unusual attitude. They have they are in the process of totally destroying their sense of a separate I, me, mine, and are totally dedicated to the welfare of others. So of course, such a being may begin to see many things which one does not see when one is caught up in the castle, if you like, or the fortress of one's own narrow self-identity, which limits what we can perceive, and understand, because we're so caught up with I and me and mine, my habits, my desires, my dislikes. So a being who's gone beyond that, pretty much, obviously can begin to see the world in a different way. So perhaps this may help for us to understand how there could be a life of the Buddha which seems so fantastical, so amazing, so full of things that are very strange, almost like make-believe. Yeah, okay. So what would be let me read something. Clearly, in the perspective of the Mahayana, so this Mahayana Buddhism is the Buddhism which is concerned with not just liberating oneself, but working towards the liberation of all beings, right? All beings, without exception. Yeah. So according to that perspective, the world is fashioned according to the lenses that we use to see with. Yeah. What particular lenses are we using? And here in the Lalitavistara, which in this translation is called the play in full, the play, it's like life is theater, it's a play, it's a dance of energies, which we do not quite understand yet ourselves, but it's an amazing dance of energy and processes. And the play in full, this is the full, the vast, extensive understanding of the life of the Buddha. The play in full, Lalitavistara. The lenses are those of full and complete awakening. This fact is already alluded to in the title of the text, which describes the events in the Bodhisattva's life as a play. As such, the events in the Bodhisattva's life are not ordinary karmic activity that unfold based on the mechanisms of a conceptual mind, but rather the playful manner in which the non-conceptual wisdom of a 10th level Bodhisattva unfolds as an expression of his awakened insight or her awakened insight. So let's unpack this a little bit. Just at the moment, we have to engage in what one teacher calls Cinderella-like teachings, meaning it's like a lullaby, it's like a story which you tell beginners, young people, to just make them happy and to make them relax. It's not the whole truth. It's like a fairy tale. Yeah. So that is easily understood, these basic level, or what we call teachings based on the relative truth. They are more understandable with what we call a conceptual mind, a mind which thinks, which analyzes, which has images, which compares things, etc. Conceptual mind, thinking mind, which we are using all the time at a gross or subtle level. Now, to attain high degree of concentration, insight, let alone awakening, full awakening or full Buddhahood, for example, or even nirvana, we need to go into a non-conceptual state of mind, which is not at the thinking level, which is not working in terms of subject and object, right? A non-dualistic, non-conceptual consciousness, which is somehow simply, how to put it, since I haven't experienced it, but absorbed, just totally oneness with the objects of awareness, where there's no sense of duality, of I'm over here and you're over there. So that sense of non-conceptuality, that is what is required to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the truths taught by Lord Buddha. It cannot be simply arrived at through a thinking or conceptual or analytical awareness, however important that may be at the beginning level. And it is very important at the beginning level, conceptual activity. You know, I mean, we have doctors, we have professors here, we have lawyers here. If you tell them conceptual activity isn't necessary, they'll say, well, we can't fight our case then. If you want us to go into non-conceptuality, what are we going to do? You know, neither, you know, the judge won't understand us. People will fire us immediately for trying to be non-conceptual. We have to use argument, we have to use trickery and cunning and all the other. A teacher has to employ incredible amount of conceptuality, of increasing levels of subtlety maybe, but it's still conceptual. There may be, I mean, would you say you have to use intuitive? Do you have to arouse the intuitive understanding of your students when you teach them, would you say, to a large degree?
You have to always trick them.
You?
Trick them.
Trick them?
Yeah.
So is that conceptual?
Yeah.
It's pretty conceptual. Pretty. You have to trick them. Okay. What do you have to trick them into?
To start thinking in ways they have not before.
Ah, okay. Still thinking though, useful, but thinking. So exactly, this is the point. Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama says that one of the great aspects of the Mahayana is the emphasis on analytical thinking, analysis. Here we're saying we need to go beyond that. Yeah, but hold on, not in the beginning. Analysis is so important. For example, if you ask me, oh, why do you say being a human is so amazing? When I look around, I see a lot of suffering humans. When I turn on, look at my screen or my TV, I see suffering humans. I'm suffering. I'm having a hell of a time. So how come you're saying that my human life is so precious? Then you say, well, you analyze. You analyze, why is this human life so precious? Would you rather be a dog, a cat, it's just sleeping very peacefully? Say it's one of those that gets well fed and a good home and sleeping a lot of the day and doing the right things. Really, what is the potential of that animal? What is the potential of a human being? When we begin to analyze and look at it through the way it is presented in the teachings, all of the things we can accomplish mentally rather than just physically, of course, with this amazing human mind, then we begin to see how a human life is potentially so meaningful, so meaningful. And so analysis is deeply important, and analysis involves thinking, right? Comparing and thinking and so forth. So we're not putting down analytical or conceptual thought, but we're saying that if we stay at that level, we cannot attain the deep insights and revelations that is open to someone who has gone into a very, very, very subtle and more non-conceptual state of mind. Because those beings report, well, like the Buddha and other great beings, they're not afraid to report what they have seen. Their past lives, future lives, their ability to read our minds as though it was just very clearly printed on a text, I mean, I've had that experience of people reading my mind. I have never read anyone else's mind, unless sometimes it's very simple, you bring your friend's favorite sweets in front of them and you look at their face and then you know what they're thinking, kind of thing. But I'm saying more subtle things, we don't know. But people do know. Some people know very well what you and I are thinking. And how? Because they've gone into an extraordinarily deep and subtle level of awareness in which many, many things are possible. So we have to expand our idea of what a human mind is capable of. I think this is one of the great teachings of all the religions, perhaps, especially I find in Buddhism. And in the Mahayana Buddhism, we are asked to stretch our minds. We really have to stretch and begin to look at things from a different perspective. Yeah. But the good news is that in all these sutras, with all of the fantastical happenings, there's also very wonderful verses which we can easily relate to, which deal with, which we will see, are much easier to understand with, of course, the conceptual mind. And what I and you are doing here today is, I'm sure, 99.9% conceptual mind at work, right? Okay, so in this manner of storytelling, the reader is invited into the worldview of a timeless and limitless universe as perceived by adepts of the Mahayana. The time span, the numbers and sizes within this Mahayana scripture are so persistently overwhelming that all historical and scientific thinking as we know it eventually loses meaning and relevance. Now that's kind of a big statement. This is, by the way, from the introduction to the 84,000 organizations translation of the Lalitavistara. Not the one on the wall, the Western wall, but what seems to be a very excellent translation sponsored by the Siddharth Foundation and the work of Dzongsa Rinpoche and others. It's this translation. So, yeah, the scientific thinking. I think we need to spend a little time on this. By the way, we're not going to finish the Lalitavistara today and tomorrow, okay? Just in case you're wanting to wrap up the Lalitavistara in 2 sessions. This is going to take 20 or 30 sessions. So but we're starting, right? So that, and this is, I've sent the online version to Nico, and he can share it with people. And anyway, you can find it online, yeah, and begin to look at it and be amazed by it. Okay, so scientific thinking. Science can only use certain instruments, can't it? Extraordinary instruments, yes, we agree. Telescopes that can see things, wow, unbelievable distances away, the light coming from those. Extraordinary photos we see of the galaxies, unimaginable distances from here, yeah. And we can go down into the cell and perceive things with electron microscopes. So, and we have magical instruments. We have the magic of WhatsApp and all the rest, which is, for me, it's like magic. The images and so forth coming in split second from across the globe through space without any wires being attached to me or to the instrument. It's, for me, it's like magic. But science is still, according to the Buddhist way of looking at things, still limited, because we still do not have an instrument in science, in modern science at the moment, that can investigate properly what we call consciousness, awareness, mind. There is still not a proper understanding or definition of mind amongst modern scientists. Some are open-minded and willing to talk with Buddhists and try and understand, but there seems to be no great scientists or famous scientists who are willing to put in the hundreds of thousands of hours of meditation that are necessary to begin to access the non-conceptual deep states of awareness, which are going to lead, according to the Buddhists, to places that modern scientific instruments cannot reach. Yeah, who is going to put in? No, very few Buddhists are going to put in tens of thousands of hours of meditation practice to attain that level of awareness, right? So why should scientists, already busy, doing this and that, and, getting their latest research papers published and so forth, who has the time to sit and meditate for 10 hours a day, 365, days a year for decades? Who has that time? Nobody. So we are left with that problem, that science does not believe that, in contemplative science, if you like, it doesn't feel it's possible. When His Holiness spoke to scientists and said that there are yogis who can focus on an object of meditation without any distraction at all for 4 hours on end, they didn't believe him. Of course, why should they believe him? For modern scientists, for neuroscientists, whatever, they say, well, a human being maybe can manage 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe, but not more. So are they willing to then engage in contemplative research? No. In fact, according to Alan Wallace, and other people, I think, he says that actually a lot of modern scientists, although they've engaged in dialogue with Buddhists and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, most of them still think they know better than Buddhists, and they're not willing to engage in what the Buddhists are saying is necessary to really go deeper. There's a kind of an arrogance there with science, which of course has produced so many powerful instruments of investigation as well as destruction, that maybe there's some kind of arrogance from the side of the scientific worldview that really we know best, and what we cannot measure doesn't exist, right? So that's dangerous. That's not even scientific, to say that what we cannot measure now doesn't exist. We have to say maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't have the instruments yet. If they had any real respect, I think, and some kind of real respect for people like the Dalai Lama, they would listen harder and say, yeah, maybe some of us do need to do a lot of meditation and understand what these Buddhists are talking about, that the mind is an amazing instrument that can go so deeply, that can go far beyond what our scientific instruments can, determine. But as I say, there's been a lot of dialogue. The Dalai Lama has put so much effort into this for the last 40 years, although probably stopped 4 or 5 years ago as His Holiness got quite old. But the mind-life dialogues were going on for decades. And I'm not sure how much really the scientific community has learned from that. There are some, of course, who have become devotees of His Holiness. But there are very, very few people, as I said, who have the time to meditate so much, or the money to be able to spend their life doing that. Yeah. So this text can thus be read on many levels from a Buddhist perspective, with new facets being discovered upon each reading. For the layperson, I guess most of us, it may provide an inspiring glimpse into the ethos of the Mahayana worldview. For the renunciant, it can represent an encouragement to live the contemplative life. And for the scholar, it may appear as an exemplary specimen of Buddhist philosophy and literature. For others, it may be all of these and still more. Matlab, there's something here for everybody, potentially. Yeah. And it doesn't make any attempt, this sutra, to present itself as some kind of monolithic, homogeneous text composed by any single author. In fact, it seems that the compilers of the text took pride in presenting an account of the Bodhisattva's last existence that was as detailed and all-encompassing as possible. And to this end, it was perfectly acceptable to draw openly on a variety of sources. So it's like entering a garden where the gardener has, looked worldwide and got beautiful exotic plants and seeds from all over the place and has planted it in a wonderful garden that we can enjoy. So there is no rigid saying that, oh, this is just this particular Germanic tradition of gardening, or the British or the French. It's everything. There's a whole bunch of sources, and this garden has many, many wonderful, beautiful flowers. What is the subject matter? Let me get to the basic subject matter of any life of the Buddha, at least in the basic traditions. There would be an investigation and a description of what are called the 12 deeds of the Buddha. The 12 deeds, or the 12 great actions of the Buddha. One, and excuse my Sanskrit or Hindi, but I'm reading it as it was put on the Western Wall. Bhagavato Uttramati, or the descent from the realm of Tushita. The descent from the realm of Tushita, where the Bodhisattva was abiding, or we would say the Buddha, already a Buddha, but anyway, it doesn't matter. For some, it's actually more inspiring to think that that person is not yet a Buddha, right? And then comes and shows these activities and shows us how to become a Buddha. That's more inspiring in some way. If they're already a Buddha, then what hope have I got? But we are sitting in Tushita already, all of us, and with Lord Maitreya behind us, so maybe we're okay. Bhagavato Uttramati, descent from the realm of Tushita. 2, Garbhavakranti, or Akranti, Garbhavakranti, entering the womb of his mother. 3, Janam, birth. Yeah. 4, Sanskritik evam Sharirik. And here I wrote this down standing up next to the Western Wall, so I cannot read the next word. This is very shameful. Sanskritik evam Sharirik karyon mein pravinta. Accomplishment in culture and athletics. There's everything in this sutra. There's even athletics. There's mathematics. There's archery. Because the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, had to prove himself first in worldly affairs and get married, etc., before he renounced it all. Yeah, so there's all that. Sanskritik evam sharirik karyon mein. 5, Kridamod. I didn't know this word. Kridamod, a life of pleasure. Life of pleasure in the palace. which his father had so painstakingly put together for him. Yeah, so we have to see this symbolically also and relate it to our own lives, and it will make a lot of sense. So, life of pleasure. 6. Abhinishkramanna. Abhinishkramanna. Leaving home. Leaving home. Leaving the palace. Leaving the palace. Wow. Dushkaracharya. Dushkaracharya. The practice of hardship. Practice of hardship. Our teacher, our late teacher Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he loves this one. He loves this one. He says he made us have the statue of the fasting Buddha, quite famous. It's there at the back in black, actually, behind the donation box. It's like you donate to our starving Buddha, you know. He loves that because he says, you want to get enlightened? Okay, you have to go through hardship. No shortcuts, no shortcuts, which is what we, of course, want. We want shortcuts. We want shortcuts all the time. Whenever I start looking at YouTube or whatever, and I haven't got the non-ads version at the moment, so I have to interrupt my lovely classical symphonies with adverts. But anyway, a lot of these ads are telling us how to get things quicker. And I feel like swearing. I say, I'm not in a bloody hurry. I'm not in a hurry. What's your hurry? Slow down, you know? It really makes me rather annoyed, somewhat. You know, everyone's in a hurry. What's the hurry? Okay, yeah, you had a long day in the office. You're trying to get home in Delhi traffic. I understand. I think I try to understand. But then being in a big hurry and getting angry, of course, that also doesn't help, right? So just slow down, maybe take a few deep breaths, you know, something. Anyway, practice of hardship. So, you know, our teacher used to say, if you go on pilgrimage, it's wonderful if you have lots of hardship during your pilgrimage. You know, we want to have a nice, maybe AC journey up to wherever, Dharamsala or wherever you start the pilgrimage to Uttarakhand. What is it? To where the lingam is? Kanawa? Huh? Amarnath. Yeah, I want a very nice journey, and then palki milna chahiye. कोई दिक्कत नहीं होना चाहिए, मौसम एकदम ठीक होना चाहिए, everything should be perfect. Rinpoche says, no, you should have hardships on pilgrimage. He gets very happy when he hears about people who had hardship. He says, you're purifying negative karma by having hardship. Why should it be easy? Will it be better if it's easier, you think? You know, anyway, Rinpoche kind of taunted us almost with these kind of teachings. Always in the tradition of the Mahayana Guru, in the tradition of the Mahayana Guru being there to puncture or insult our ego. This is said to be the purpose of an authentic Guru, to puncture and destroy our ego. Of course, in the beginning, they act very nice, you know, Gurus, smiling and, you know, and giving us things, chocolate, and, you know, answering our WhatsApp messages even. Then, after a while, they can be silent, and then you say, oh, have they given up on me, you know? Oh, they're answering that person's message. Why aren't they answering mine? And then all of that starts happening. And then sometimes, if you're really lucky, you can ask the Guru for a job, and then they will give you some job which you very quickly realize you don't want to do, you know? So in all these ways, the Guru stretches us and makes us have hardship. Anyway, the Bodhisattva, Siddharth, let's call him Siddharth still. He travels, having left the palace, goes through North India, the forests, listening to teachings, undergoing hardship. Yeah, he's going through that. He's had many gurus. He knows he has to undergo hardship. He's willing to undergo hardship. And one of the things that early on, on the Western Wall got my attention was the practice of hardships, the incredible detail of what happened, what was happening to his body as he starved himself basically for 5 years. 5 or 6 years. Anyway, 5 or 6 years he starved himself basically. As part of what he had to go through. You could say it's mistaken. Why didn't he do a shortcut and quickly go to the Bodhi tree? Well, things don't quite happen like that. He had to go through that, you know. So life of hardship, practice of hardship. So number 5 was a life of pleasure. Then he leaves home, and then practice of hardship. You could say, how stupid. He shouldn't have left the palace, right? Life of pleasure, beautiful wife, birth of the son. Yeah. और क्या चाहिए भाई? पागल हो? Anyway, he left. Then, after the hardship, Bodhi Mandagamana, proceeding to the place suitable for awakening. Okay, so he traditionally it said he accepted rice, milk, kheer from Sujata, and felt very good after that, and washed and bathed for the first time in 5 or 6 years. Must have felt excellent. And then he walked to the Bodhi tree and so forth. But of course, this is given in tremendous detail and like, you know, have any of you seen Western classical operas? This is the opera of operas. This is totally beyond opera, you know, except you don't have that kind of singing. But the stage is set here in a most extraordinary way for all of these aspects. Yeah. Okay, so then after that, Mara Darshana, overcoming Mara, the Lord of Illusion. So it is said that, and we can see it, sometimes when we engage on something very positive or very virtuous, there's a part of us which doesn't want to engage in it. There are many temptations, distractions, many things that divert our mind, and people even can be involved. The evil stepmother or mother-in-law, father-in-law, jo bhi hai, you know, all of the evil boss. If you're in the corporate world, you have the evil boss who is preventing you from, you know, doing what you want to do. So whatever it is, Siddhartha had to overcome a lot of obstacles, but because by then he was so full of spiritual energy and the unbelievable power of his meritorious actions, the unbelievable, you could say, meritorious positive energy he had accumulated over millions of lifetimes, and the love he had, the great love, and love is an inadequate word to use, I'm sure, for what he experienced, a non-conceptual love, universal love and compassion. Mara's tricks and illusions and so forth had no effect on him. He was able to easily overcome all that. You know, Mara's weapons turned into a rain of flowers and so forth. So such was the power. And if you look at that, we can see how psychologically that might work. So we could discuss that today maybe, because we're not going to get very far, I'm afraid, with this sutra text today. What is it? What time do you tend to finish at Tushita nowadays, Nicola?
It's very variable.
Variable. Okay. We might have a break soon for those who need a break, and then we can start again. We'll see how we go. How long have we been going? An hour. An hour. Sorry about that. So overcoming Mara. Then, number 10, Abhisambodhi. Abhisambodhi. Full enlightenment. Complete. Full and complete enlightenment. Then, number 11, Dharma Chakra Pavatanna. Dhamma Chakra Pavatanna. I find it easier to say in Pali. Dhamma Chakra Pavatanna. the first sutra he gave was the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta at Sarnath, yeah, outside Banaras, Varanasi, turning the wheel of the Dharma. There's a very ancient symbol of the Dharma in the Indian wisdom traditions. There's a wheel that is rolled, which rolls through time and space. So turning the wheel of the Dharma. Then the last great deed, you might say they leave out a lot, but actually number 11 is the one that has caused us to be sitting here, right? The fact that he taught the Dharma. All the rest of it is like, okay, but the fact we're here, we had teachers who taught us the Dharma, is because the Buddha taught the Dharma, his great deed number 11. Yeah. Then number 12, Parishuddha evam sampurna parinirvan. So all things come to an end, and the Buddha's life also, or his visible physical life span, came to an end on this earth at a place called Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh. And perfect and complete parinirvan, going beyond nirvana. But here nirvana not to be misunderstood as personal peace or peace for oneself, which should be the goal of the basic Buddhist path. But here parinirvan means going into, going beyond what ordinary people can see, but not completely abandoning living beings, but just simply changing form, leaving an outworn body and carrying on the work. But for the beings of that time, it appeared that the Buddha had disappeared. But of course, the Buddha's mind never disappears. Actually, your mind and my mind never disappears. So the enlightened mind has not disappeared. It is still there. It is still throughout space, you could say, willing, non-conceptually, always there for us, spontaneously helping us. Which is why teachers, and all we read in the texts, are able to say that at a certain level, you could experience, if your mind was elevated enough, and you had that faith and devotion and whatever else it takes, you would literally be able to receive teachings from these statues. You would hear teachings coming from these statues. No problem. No problem. If you're a certain level, why not? Why do we say not? We don't know. We would have to, if we're honest, say we don't know whether that could be the case or not. It sounds very strange, doesn't it? But how can we say it's not possible? If I went back in time to when I was with my Scottish grandfather in North London and said that in 25 years, Granddad, or 50 years, there's going to be instruments like this where you have messages coming from far away, just like that, he'd say, take it easy, we had a wireless radio that was magical enough in those days. We're talking, what are we talking? Late 60s, okay? So we have a wireless radio. You can sit and listen to the Beethoven concert or whatever. But messages coming through space into a little thing, unimaginable. So it's all a question of evolution, perception, isn't it? So when we say the statues can speak, we have to think what that really means, and if it could be possible. Some people say it's possible. Our teacher would never admit that they would receive teachings from statues, but the texts are full of it, and I see no logical, well, there are certain logical reasons. If you're a materialist, a scientific materialist, then of course the obvious thing is that, we have an instrument and it's not picking up any teachings coming from this statue, right? But if we had a different kind of awareness, we might be receiving teachings from all over the place, space, Why not? These messages in my WhatsApp are coming from space. So why can't teachings come from space? Come on. This is magical enough for me. This for me is a great example. When I first was turned on to WhatsApp by a friend, I couldn't believe it. I said, wow, you can send a video on this? It was like, wow. So we just have to expand what we think may be possible. So those are the 12 deeds which this great text is looking at in an extraordinary way over hundreds and hundreds of pages and over 100 panels on the Western Wall in Bodhgaya. Let's take a 5-minute break, okay? Then I can also collect my conceptual thoughts, and you can have a short break, look at the library, have a biscuit, have a cup of tea, if it's there, or water. Just take it easy, okay? Sorry. अमिताभ जी भी हैं, अमिताभ माथुर साहब आप भी हैं क्या? क्या हमको शर्मा रहे हैं? Who else? रॉय साहब, हाँ सुजीत जी क्या हाल है जी? ठीक हैं? I don't know if anyway, you're all on silent. You've probably all been put on silent by the manager. Sorry about that. Nikoji, have you seen this book?
I'm trying to control this from the other computer.
Oh, it's not working. Thank you, everyone. Let's spend a few moments to remember the motivation. It's not for nothing that the Buddha, his very first teaching after enlightenment, almost the first phrase was regarding unsatisfactoriness or dukkha, the unsatisfactory nature of life. like a honest, I think, honest, good doctor. He didn't try to just please us by saying that there was really nothing much to worry about and, just take this pill or whatever, you'll be okay. It's nothing really. He told us we were sick. We were suffering from the great sickness of ignorance, anger, attachment, or sometimes we just say craving. We're suffering from the contaminated body and mind and the karmic energy that comes out of that, the karmic action, which creates more and more and more pain and confusion. That was his first teaching. And we can see how this is reverberating throughout the world, throughout our lives. It's worth remembering how the Buddha says that even our so-called happinesses, our little satisfactions, our pleasures are in fact just another form of unsatisfactoriness or suffering of change, it is technically called. Nothing is ever enough for us. We're constantly distracted by the wanting mind, the disturbed mind, the insecure mind, and this is creating havoc. We see it when there are leaders who are insecure, unhappy, frustrated human beings, the havoc that can create in the world. And of course, it's playing out at our individual levels as well. It's just we don't have the power of the great leaders, big leaders. So anything that can reduce this ego clinging, this ignorance, the not knowing who we are, the pain of not knowing who we really are, or how things exist, that fundamental pain or confusion can be, we can begin to soften that, we can begin to find a way to understand that more deeply and eradicate that ignorance. One of the ways is to listen to and discuss and investigate the words of the Buddha. And as I say, what better way to understand the Buddha and to develop faith and some trust in the Buddha than to look at the life of the Buddha and see also to see its parallels to some degree in our own lives. What does it evoke in us? What does it, what reverberates in us when we look at, investigate the life of the Buddha? This is very important because the Buddha was a human being like us, even much more deluded than any of us at some point in his previous lives. He was far more deluded than us and slowly became a very extraordinary being through effort. effort. Yeah. So by looking at this sutra, may we also generate that sort of effort and delight in the life of the Buddha and his teachings. May we be inspired to look at these teachings and, as much as possible, begin to investigate deeper and practice them if we can. That would be wonderful. Okay. The title of this sutra indicates that this is an elaborate account of the playful activity performed by the Bodhisattva. The fact that it is called in full, Vistara, indicates that the compiler saw this text as an elaborate way of viewing the awakening of the Buddha as opposed to other, more limited accounts, which have less emphasis on so-called miracles and elasticity of time and place. But in full is not to be understood only in terms of the vast Mahayana worldview. It can also signify an elaborate account that includes more details than previous presentations of the topic, since the Sanskrit word vistar can communicate this meaning as well. Is it pronounced Vistar or Vistara? It's like the airline is what? Vistara? Vistar? Vistara. Does it have that same meaning as the vast? Same meaning. I've traveled once on it. It was pretty good, actually. Yeah.
Now it's dead.
Okay, so let's get down to it. Some verses. So apparently, the first chapter is on the setting. It is in a place called Sravasti, which again, if you have time, if you were to visit that place, you might be inspired. We had the great good fortune to go there once with Lama Zopa Rinpoche, about a dozen of us, and spend 3 or 4 full days there. This was 15, 20 years ago. Amazing place where the Buddha spent, I think, 22 or so rainy season retreats when the monks would stay with the Buddha in one place and not travel around during the monsoon, just be in one place, meditate, receive teachings. So the Buddha spent many seasons there, monsoon retreat seasons in Sravasti. And they are quite extensive ruins. It'll be busier now than when we were there, but I'm sure it still has a lot of the sanctity and inspiration that it had 20 years ago. And in the time of the Buddha, it would have been quite something. It was an important place. So it is said that the setting for this sutra, there were, and here we begin to have large numbers, 12,000 monks supposed to have been there, 32,000 bodhisattvas, meaning 32,000 people who had already given up their own benefit, in the sense they were not just living for themselves, they were living for others. They were even benefiting people who harmed them. They were truly loving their enemies in the sense of wanting their enemies to be happy and trying to, help them in whatever ways possible. Those kinds of people, that kind of person, 32,000 of them, maybe minus 1 or 2 or more, or 1,000, who knows? And so all of these beings were there, and countless, it is said, gods and other kinds of beings who we cannot see, you and I cannot see, but beings with less impairments can see, many other kinds of beings. The Buddha spoke of 6 realms of existence, not just humans and animals, many realms, many different kinds of beings, some in great suffering, some not so much, some very divine kind of beings with great enjoyments and meditative powers. All sorts of beings were there to listen to the sutra. So now I'm quoting from the sutra, okay? So again, you can close your eyes and of course, if you want to look at anything here, look at Maitreya or one of the Buddhas. Don't look at me. Or best you close your eyes and just indulge your imagination. If you've been to any of the Buddhist pilgrimage places, it may help you. Or you could just imagine you're in a very beautiful place, one of your favorite places on the planet. Very beautiful, you know, and you can, you can begin to imagine what is happening. Okay, so now monks, what is this extensive discourse on the Dharma known as the play in full? Because Buddha has been requested by gods and bodhisattvas and others to reveal this sutra. Monks, the bodhisattva, referring to himself in the past, dwelt in the supreme realm of the heaven of joy, Tushita, where he was honored by offerings and received consecration and was praised and revered by 100,000 gods. He had achieved his goal and was elevated by his former aspirations. He'd achieved his goal of enlightenment and he was elevated by his former aspirations. Very interesting term. We think, though we have to do things, we always have to get something done, which of course is very good. We can't just aspire to get up in the morning or clean or brush our teeth. We have to do it, right? But there are certain things we cannot do yet, right? But we aspire to. And especially if we want to be of great benefit to others, and we cannot be such right now, we have to aspire. That is the beginning, isn't it, of anything. Even we want to go somewhere on holiday, we have to aspire, right? And then we get the ticket, then we go. So we have to aspire, we have to want to. So he was elevated by his former aspirations. So he got to this place where he is now, the Buddha in Tushita heaven, receiving all these offerings, which he hasn't asked for. He's created the cause to just have people give him things, due to his former aspirations to be of benefit to others, to be a Buddha, to be of benefit, to help suffering beings. These were his aspirations for many, 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 many lifetimes. And now it's beginning, to bear fruit. And he wouldn't have been where he is then, in Tushita heaven, were it not for those earlier aspirations. So we must not think that aspirations are no use. They are totally wonderful and have to be engaged in. It's the first step. And they have great power and become more and more powerful. The more and more evolved we become, our aspirations become more and more powerful. And there are many stories in the sutras of how an aspiration made in one life can have tremendously powerful positive effects in the future. So we must not give up on aspirations, thinking, oh, I'm useless, I can't even help myself right now. How could I possibly help others? We must make aspirations to be able to do so, and then it will happen. It will happen. So he was elevated by his former aspirations. His intelligence was such that he had attained the entire range of the Buddhadharma. Indeed, his eye of wisdom was at once both vast and utterly pure. Radiating with mindfulness, intelligence, realization, modesty, and joyfulness, his mind was extremely powerful. He had mastered the perfections of generosity, discipline, patience, diligence or joyous effort, mental stability, knowledge, and skillful means. And he was adept in the fourfold path of Brahma, or the Brahma Vihars, or the four immeasurables: great love, great compassion, great joy, and great equanimity. So it's worth mentioning these, especially for newcomers here who may not know what these are, since they are such important factors on the Bodhisattva path. So the immeasurables go like this. If we speak of immeasurable love, in short, it's like this. Starts like this, that how wonderful it would be if all beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. Yeah. So may they have these causes. May they be happy. May they have the causes of happiness. And then what makes it a Mahayana immeasurable is the third stage, which is that I myself will enable them. I myself will do something to enable beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness. I'll do something. I won't just sit there thinking how wonderful it is. I'm going to do something about it. Even if all I can do right now is make aspirations, yeah? Say, you're caught up, you're sick, you're in jail, whatever it is. You can't go out benefiting others, so you aspire. I will do something to enable others to be happy and to have the causes of happiness. And then, out of not just humility, but also seeing that oneself is not yet ready to be able to do so, the fourth stage is to say, please, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, my teachers, please bestow your inspiring strength to enable me to do so. Bestow your inspiring strength, your blessings, we might say, in more traditional language. Your inspiring strength. Enable me, bless me to be able to do this. Yeah? Strengthen me. Bestow your inspiring strength with your example, your joy, your compassion. Bless me to be able to do this. Do what? Enable beings to have happiness and its cause. And of course, we could talk a lot about this immeasurable. But so the immeasurable immeasurable karuna or compassion is, again, may all sentient beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And then, may they have this. May they be free of suffering and its causes. I myself will enable them. I myself. So it's a kind of big bodhisattva style sort of egotism, but not really egotism. It's a vast attitude. I myself will free all beings from suffering and its cause. I will do something. But please, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, bestow your inspiring strength to enable me to do this. I can't do it on my own right now. I need your example, your inspiring strength. Whatever is needed, my ego is still there. Please help me to dismantle my ego. A very dangerous aspiration, but one that we could make sometimes. So enable me to do this. Please bless me to be able to do this. Then the immeasurable sympathetic joy. How wonderful it would be if all beings had the happiness of higher rebirths and liberation and all of that. So may they have this. I myself will help them. I myself will help them to have these higher realizations, higher rebirth, and so forth. So please bless me. Bestow your inspiring strength to enable me to do this. Then the fourth, immeasurable equanimity. How wonderful it would be if all beings were free of attachment and anger, free from feeling very close to some and distant from others. Yeah, that's what we feel right now, isn't it? We have our own party, our own friends, our own WhatsApp group. Other people are others, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, this, that, whatever. So we need to be free of that mind and see all beings as equal in the sense of all wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. So in that sense, all equal. So may all sentient beings be free from the biased mind, in other words, free from attachment and aversion, seeing some close and some distant. So may they abide in this way. I myself will do something to help beings abide in this way, free from the bias of attachment and aversion, hatred. How will I do that? Well, many ways. Main way is to reveal the teachings of Lord Buddha, the path, the inner path, yeah. And then please, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Gurus, bestow your inspiring strength to enable me to do this. I need that. I need your blessings. I need your help your example to inspire me. Please help me to do this. Yeah. So these are the four immeasurables. So the Bodhisattva in Tushita heaven, he had mastered these. And then such was the power of the Buddha. And again, this is where someone who is good at graphics and all of the modern, instruments we have could make an amazing, video or, cartoon or whatever display of this. As the son of great beings, light rays of knowledge radiated from the orb of his liberation and concentration, dispelling the light of the swarms of extremists who are like fireflies, eliminating the darkness and obscuring film of ignorance. Indeed, with brilliant strength and diligence, the radiant majesty of his merit shone brightly among gods and humans. What do we mean by extremists? Again, we have to look a little bit at the wisdom of the Buddha, which is said to be the middle way between two extremes. The extreme of taking phenomena too seriously, in the sense of seeing them as very solid and rigid and real and independent of our perception, or seeing them as not existing at all, nihilism. So we have to be free of the extreme, what we call reification or solidification of phenomena, as well as thinking that, well, they don't exist at all, really. They're just Maya, they're just illusion. So they don't exist. That would be another extreme. So the Buddha is free of those extremes. And his light rays, which are said to spontaneously emanate at all times from the Buddha, are eliminating the darkness of ignorance of all the beings in the universe. But especially here, mentioning the extremists, because we are extremists. According to Lord Buddha, all of us are extremists to some extent. I don't think many of us would be nihilists, but I dare say most of us in this room are extremists in the sense of we think things are very real, don't we? We grasp onto things as definitely there. Outside of me, there is a laptop and you guys and girls and boys and stuff going on, right? Something real is out there, independent of my mind, totally, independent of my conception, independent of everything, just there. So we have that kind of view of permanence and solidity, which the Buddha said is total nonsense. It's a total hallucination. So we're all hallucinating, according to Buddha. That's why he taught, not just that we need a little bit more happiness, or freedom from, bad fathers-in-law or something, not like that. We need to be free of the hallucination of solidity, of this extreme, of taking phenomena so seriously, or not taking them at all seriously enough, thinking that they don't exist at all, which is another way of taking things seriously, isn't it? They really do exist or they really don't exist. Both are extreme positions, which the Buddha is free of completely. Presented with offerings, and again, these are natural results of his aspirations. Presented with offerings, the Blessed One received abundant savory food, drink, robes, alms bowls, bedding, healing medicines and remedies, and other appropriate necessities. So if the Buddha is receiving all these things, if one were to begin to analyze this, why is the Buddha receiving all these things? He hasn't asked for them. The Buddha doesn't actually need these things. How have they come to him? So, causes and conditions. Nothing happens just by chance, totally by chance or spontaneously. Or, in the Buddhist tradition, doesn't happen because God wants it that way. It happens due to the chain of causes and conditions set in motion by this being in previous lifetimes, this natural result of that. So that means that if we want, or if we want others in the world to receive these things, delicious food and drink, and not die of starvation, they have to create the cause. They have to create the cause for that. Without the cause, we don't get the result. And if we have the wrong causes, we get very suffering results. This would be something one could reflect on. Yet the great wealth and renown he enjoyed were like drops of water rolling off the petals of a lotus flower, or we might say water off a duck's back. It doesn't stick there. The Blessed One remained detached and untainted by it all. The Blessed One, the Buddha, doesn't need this. It naturally occurs. We all created the cause together somehow to be at Tushita here today, where there is, you could say, some sense of beauty and nice environment. It's not smelling, like some of the drains of Delhi. And it's kind of, there's beautiful images, and so forth. And basically a kindly attitude. No one has yet been fighting with someone, or, or even our friend hasn't gone to sleep yet. So, something is working here. Sorry about that. The Blessed One remained detached and untainted. We've created the cause, so you enjoy it, But of course, if we get attached, then it might be a problem. If we dream of Tushita here and desperately want to come back tomorrow and can't, then that could become a problem. So we should just enjoy what we have right now, and thus what happens tomorrow, one sees what happens tomorrow. No idea. We don't have any idea, actually, what will happen tomorrow, don't you think? We have an idea, of course, because we think we know there will be traffic, there will be this, there will be that. The same government, the same weather, the same food, basically, the same mind set. But who knows? We could be somewhere else tomorrow. Not just in the sense of dead and in another realm, but we might have we might have such inspiring dreams tonight that we feel like we're walking on air tomorrow. People you usually scowl at, you might say, wow, there's a god or goddess or a Buddha. Who knows what could happen due to the power of the Buddha's words and your own merit, your own positive energy. You see, sutras like this, of course, especially if taught by an awakened person, they could arouse what they say the karmic seeds within us to sprout, what we call sometimes, I think, roots of virtue. An enlightened teacher could cause very powerful things to erupt in a good way in our mind stream and to lead to various unusual states of mind. So that could happen. Then they are praising. There are all these verses of praise which one has to, in a sense, plow through in the Mahayana Sutras. So you have to have some time. Please don't be in a hurry. Of course, you can just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to read a few verses of this sutra while I'm in the Uber or Ola or whatever. But, go slowly through it and then just enjoy the different verses and imagine what it means, just visualize. As the king of doctors, he dispenses divine nectar, conquering the evil hordes with his courageous eloquence. He is a friend of the Dharma and knows the ultimate. He is a peerless guide who illuminates the path. A peerless guide who illuminates the path. One of the funny it wasn't funny in the beginning, but later, when I came to India as a young student before going to university, I traveled around India by train. I was 1975. And so you come to somewhere in a part of India where you don't know their language. They don't know Hindi, they don't know English. So you try to, someone understands you and you ask them where this and this place is. And it's like people would give directions which turned out to be wrong, but they felt rude not to say anything. So, there or there, or maybe I misunderstood. So then you ask someone else and they point in a totally different direction. So you get kind of confused. But here, it's nice to have someone who knows what they're talking about and who knows the place and who knows where to point you and speaks in a language you understand. So the Buddha is like that. The Buddha is able to guide us perfectly to where we need to go. Yeah. So he is an excellent guide. He doesn't, it is said that the Buddha never lies. He never deceives. Interesting that that could be true, that there could be such a being who never lies, never deceives, knows how to point us in the right direction. Again, we should think, what is this? What are they talking about? How could there be such a person? What are the causes of such a person who never deceives, who never lies? It's weird. I mean, even that is very strange. Very strange. King of doctors. He's courageous. He has courage, not afraid to speak the truth. Yeah. Then there's a description of what is going to come in this sutra. It illuminates the basic virtues of the bodhisattvas, showing how they descended from the sublime palace in the Tushita heaven, intentionally entered the womb, sojourned in the womb, apparently spent 10 months in the womb, a bit longer than an ordinary person. I don't know why. There's probably an explanation somewhere of why, but I think 10 months in the womb. So it's like he wasn't in a hurry either, but obviously he was already enlightened in the womb, so he is working in ways that are hard for us to understand. It shows the power of the place where he was born to a noble family, how he surpassed others through all the superior special qualities that he demonstrated through his actions as a youth. It shows his many unique qualities, such as his skills in arts, crafts, writing, arithmetic, calculations, astrology, fencing, archery, feats of physical strength, and wrestling, demonstrating his superiority to all other beings in these areas. The sutra shows how he enjoyed his retinue of consorts and the pleasures of his kingdom. Yet also to benefit the multitude of beings, it shows how he taught it to bring happiness to beings. So anyway, the gods in Tushita heaven, so you visualize, all these gods are here, you think we're alone in this room, but we could be wrong. There could be many gods. There could be gods, according to the teachers. There could be hungry ghosts. There's a story here I must tell, because to speak about one's teacher is said to be auspicious. Our late teacher, used to travel by airplane a lot. Sorry to the students here who've heard this many times. He used to travel by air, of course, going from country to country to teach. And he would often not eat his meal in the airplane, not because he thought it was disgusting or anything, but he just wouldn't eat it. He wouldn't unwrap it or anything. So one time his very, very faithful, hardworking Australian attendant, Venerable Roger, asked Rinpoche, why haven't you eaten your meal? And Rinpoche said, very straightforwardly said, if you could see all the beings in this airplane who are trying to get some of this food and who cannot, then you would also kind of lose your appetite and you would just want to pray for them and aspire that they could receive some kind of essence of this food to relieve their hunger and thirst. According to the teachings, there's said to be a class of beings called the hungry ghosts, or pret in Hindi, who suffer tremendous hunger and thirst, which is impossible to satisfy. And again, one could think of what the karmic causes of that may be, because again, it's not something just happens by chance or because God wills it so. So there, Rinpoche could see these beings. As it is said, certain beings can see all these things. And out of great compassion for them, prayed, would be praying, and because that's what he would be doing. He would be praying over the food, not just sleeping or something, praying and aspiring that, and maybe engaging in certain meditations which are impossible for us to understand, which could actually help those pret, those hungry ghosts, to receive some of that food. So this is something that beings can do. So there's a multitude of beings who have to be helped in different ways. We can be a doctor of humans, we can be an animal doctor, but we have to be able to, as a bodhisattva, help a vast array of sentient beings. And they're also hell beings, beings in a very hellish state. You could say that's happening in the world with human beings. Yeah, to an extent, of course. But hell in Buddhism is not just human being hell. It's also another realm we cannot see. So anyway, the gods ask the Buddha to teach out of compassion for the world, to benefit a great multitude of beings, gods and humans alike. Teach it to be our doctor and to bring us happiness. Teach it to propagate this Mahayana vehicle. Teach it to defeat our opponents and overpower all demonic forces. To instruct all the bodhisattvas and inspire all those who follow the bodhisattva vehicle to arouse diligence, to embrace the true Dharma, and to ensure the continuity of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Please teach it to illuminate all the enlightened activities of the Buddha. So these gods are requesting the Buddha to teach the sutra so that it may be of benefit to others, to all manner of beings, and to inspire beings to illuminate for us the enlightened activities of the Buddha, which are, in a sense, inconceivable. We have no idea what the kind of enlightened activities of the Buddha are. Some people here, I think, have taken, like Nicola, has taken teachings from Geshe Dorje Dambo. Some of the texts you have studied talk about the qualities of the Buddha, right? Is that correct? Does the Abhidhamma Kosh or the Abhisamaya Lankara and the others, they're talking a bit, and it's like, isn't it pretty incredible just hearing the words about the Buddha's qualities? Many verses are required just to talk about it in conceptual terms, let alone to understand what it actually is. But of course, from a Buddhist Mahayana perspective, a Buddha is omniscient, which doesn't mean omnipotent. He can't do everything. He can't, make us enlightened or stop powerful world leaders doing stupid things. But the Buddha knows everything. Omniscient, knows everything that is to be known. But specifically for us, for our benefit, the Buddha knows how to benefit us in the sense of showing us the true path to enlightenment. Said the Buddha knows that completely, without mistake. And not in a general sense, but the Buddha would know what is best for each individual, what to do, how to do it, So the Buddha has taught a wide variety, 84,000 or more teachings to benefit beings in different ways, which is something to think about, something extraordinary. In fact, thinking, we can't think about it. It's unthinkable that the Buddha could know everything. How can someone know everything? It's beyond our capacity to understand those words. How can you know everything? It obviously, logically, it would imply that you have gone past a certain limitation of the mind, which feels that it's enclosed in this particular body, right? There has to be some sense of universality there, some kind of breaking of a shell, right? But the Buddha is said to be omniscient, all-knowing. Thus, listen here, monks, says the Buddha, to this vast sutra, taught in times past by all the Tathagats for the welfare of all the worlds. Listen, one and all, to this great discourse. And then there's a great long praise of the Bodhisattva, the Buddha. But I'll stop here. We can have some discussion. I'm sorry I didn't stop earlier. We can have some discussion. And in the cool season, or even before, some of you should come to Bodhgaya and come to the Western Wall, not to wail, but to read the sutra. So, what do you think? Buddhist fantasy? Yes.
I have a question.
Please. I may not be able to say
Thank you.
anything.
When you talked about the teacher has the power to sow the seeds of enlightenment,
Yes, yes.
for somebody who is seeking that teacher, how
For
well
someone who is what?
seeking that teacher for
Seeking that teacher.
enlightenment
Yeah.
or for a cause, how can that person do? What can that person do?
To find a teacher, are you saying?
Yes.
Well, it depends a lot on the previous aspirations, perhaps, of that person. The Dalai Lama said we shouldn't be too much in a hurry to find a teacher, because somebody asked him that question. And he said, your teacher right now should be authentic literature and your own intelligence. That's your teacher for now. And don't run after a teacher, he said, like a dog running after meat. He quoted a Tibetan proverb. Obviously, he gave that advice to someone who needed that particular advice, but I think it's probably good general advice. However, if one really feels a great yearning, then what would be the causes to find a good teacher, I wonder? What do people think? What, apart from what we may or may not have done in a past life or something like that, but if one wanted to find a teacher, what would we do? Would we go online and check who looks the best? You know,
maybe to
the
find
most handsome
purpose.
of them all, who has the most followers? Who?
Yeah, maybe to find purpose, you seek teacher. Purpose and a cause of life.
नहीं,
Cause in
but
life.
आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा? What kind of aspirations and thoughts do you think you might need to have in order to really find a teacher? You think one would need small or middling or great aspiration? Should you stay up at night thinking about it? Should you have a great yearning, which you remember day in, day out, and don't, and which we don't forget when, maybe we have a yearning and then we meet our soulmate and then we forget that we want a guru. We think we found the guru in the soulmate. I'm joking, but how to keep that aspiration alive? Might that be something that helps? I don't know. I was lucky. I didn't have much aspiration. I mean, I was interested in Buddhism. I was interested, very interested. Then I kind of just stumbled on these extraordinary people. So I guess I was just lucky. Not really that, not totally chance, but I don't remember staying up at night sweating and thinking, I must have a guru, I must have a guru. But yeah, I was very interested and motivated at a certain point in my life, yeah. And they turned up. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. Rishad bhai, what advice would you give?
Perhaps Kabir Ji, staying close to Sangha, staying close to friends, staying close to people who are practicing. Sometimes they show the path, or sometimes they end up sort of suggesting you something that might sometimes work for you.
Good practical advice, for sure. For sure. But one has to have some kind of, I feel, some kind of instinct or karmic predisposition within oneself. It's like they have that joke, isn't it, that if you take a pickpocket to see a saint, then the pickpocket is just looking at the pockets of the saint. They will not be influenced by the spiritual teaching of the saint. They're there to pick his pockets. So it depends who we are. But yeah, I'm sure I was in a particular Buddhist society. So yeah, we had teachers come to visit us. So I was in the right circumstance, you could say, to meet people who knew other people. And so then I went to that Buddhist college that these speakers had come from, and one thing led to another. Yeah. And some people I know have had very extraordinary experiences meeting teachers and then knowing somehow this was a very, very special person for them. And there was this English nun, Tenzin Palmo, who was a British nun who spent for 14 years in retreat in Lahul district of Himachal. She was an Englishwoman who came to India. She just heard the name of this teacher, Kamtul Rinpoche, and knew somehow just an Englishwoman who she knew she had to meet this person, and then met him, received teachings, and went into 14 years of solitary retreat based on his teachings and the inspiration from that teacher. So that's very unusual, but these things happen. So she must have created some powerful causes, and she's a well-known teacher, and she wrote this wonderful book, Cave in the Snow, is her autobiography. It's there in Hindi now as well. We have it here. So, yeah, that's unusual. But I think the Dalai Lamaji's advice to that student is very good. We shouldn't be craving and unhappy if we haven't met a teacher yet. But there's such wonderful literature available now, and sutras also, and then our own intelligence. One of the major teachings of Mahayana Buddhism is that we all have basic goodness or basic intelligence and basic warmth, but especially intelligence also. So we shouldn't undermine ourselves by thinking I'm too stupid to benefit from my own wisdom, given the right literature. We should have some confidence in our own, what some people call basic goodness, or Buddha nature. We all have Buddha nature according to the Lord Buddha. So we can all wake up. In the beginning, authentic literature can help a great deal. And that can lead to then, because you see, the other great thing is the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have made such incredible vast prayers that they are praying all the time and have made prayers that they may, that people who need their help may meet up with them, that they may, meet people who will benefit from their help. The Buddhas are just constantly, spontaneously available for all beings, but we're just not tuned in to that radio station. We're not tuned in, or our receiver is damaged, but they're constantly broadcasting, you could say, even from the statues, and we're not hearing it. So yeah, we have the intelligence, it is said, but yeah, sometimes we behave so stupidly that we undermine our own intelligence. I mean, I could say that every day I undermine my intelligence by engaging in distraction of one kind or another. But if we don't do that, then I think we're more liable to receive the blessings and messages from the Buddha. Yeah, I mean, there are very great stories of how great bodhisattvas link up with people they want to help from life to life. They're willing to do all sorts of things for people. That's their job. That's their job description. Just like good detective or policeman, it's their job to catch thieves. Bodhisattva's job is to catch suffering sentient beings and help them here, there, and everywhere. So that way, I guess we just have to clean tune up our receiving set, upgrade our transistor. 12 minutes to 9. But I'm happy to go on. So long as there's tea, I can go on. But some of you have to go long distances. I'm very grateful to all of you who are still here. I think this is the power of the Buddha's word, you know. Very auspicious. Anything from onliners? Can we?
Kabir
Yeah.
Ji. Kabir Ji?
Hadi. I recognize the voice, but I can't put a name to it.
Oh,
Maybe.
well, it must be from a previous life then. Anyway, I'm Vicky. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia in the USA.
Great.
So it's always said that the Buddha cannot give us realizations. We have to do the work ourselves. But, and maybe this is not a valid comparison, but in Hinduism, we often read of how different teachers, either by word or touch or just being in the presence of a teacher, give their students some type of realizations. So, you know, it's like I can't help but wonder, is there no grace or bodhika in Buddhism?
What's that word after grace?
Baraka. Baraka. It's grace.
Baraka. Acha.
Yes.
Baraka. Acha. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can call it grace. Grace would then mean that, but grace doesn't come from nowhere, though. We have created the cause to be graced, if you like, I think, due to, again, who we are, what causes we've created, the state of mind we're in. That there could be many factors. Yeah, grace is. I don't know what the comparable word would be in the Buddhist lexicon, but there's blessing, there's inspiration. Isn't that the kind of grace? It's not the grace of God, of course, because we don't believe in that kind of God in Buddhism. But there could certainly be the sense of grace in that, say, we have created some very powerful positive or even negative karma with a very great Mahasattva, a great being, a Bodhisattva, or a previous Buddha. They would be wanting to help us. They would have that karmic connection. We would have that connection with them, whether we had helped them or hindered them. So we would have some strong connection with some enlightened being, let's say. So then we could feel, we might feel some sense of grace or very deep affinity with that being if we were in their presence, or even if we heard their name, possibly, or saw their picture on the internet, we might feel a strong connection. Or it may grow slowly over time. It may not be instant grace, but yeah. But some teachers might say, look, forget all this grace business, do the basic work, which is to stop being infatuated by samsara, right? Sansar, the wheel of contaminated aggregates, body, mind, contaminated aggregates, powered by delusion and karma, going round and round and round. First begin to understand that, begin to feel some, distaste for this continual painful revolution that we're going through. But yeah, grace will come to some. Grace certainly comes to some more than others. But we would say they've created the cause somewhere down the line.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope Atlanta, Georgia is peaceful right now. No tornadoes, no whatever. Yeah. What else? Naveen ji, kya haal hai? Back row, the back benches, anything? No heckling today? Too tired to heckle? Gaganji? Okay. We have people from very illustrious universities here and they're all quiet. Anyway. सोनाली जी कोई कुछ नहीं विवेक साहब कुछ तो बोलिए मैं तो बोल चुका हूँ यार मैं तो बोलते ही रहता हूँ आपसे कुछ मांग रहा हूँ I'm asking my good friend Vivek Ji to say something. He's saying, you say something. I said, I've said enough, right? ठीक है, good for today. Sorry to keep you so long, but thank you for your great kindness. We can dedicate, which means we don't just let this patience you have shown go to waste. We have to dedicate it that you may be patient in even more extreme situations. Because the world as it is, I think it's going to require more patience from us, in the sense not getting angry, not getting upset at sufferings, not being overwhelmed by what's happening in our lives and in the world, which is very distressing, can be very distressing. So may we not be overwhelmed by it. May we have the armor of great compassion and love and patience, which stops us, reacting to things with anger, but rather with love and understanding. May we realize that those who are behaving in the most objectionable ways are actually suffering from delusion and karma. So may we help them to be free of that delusion and karma and not hate them in any way, but feel more and more concern for them. May we be as unbiased as possible, seeing all beings as wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer. So therefore, how can we pick some out and say they deserve more than others? May all beings be free from suffering. May they all have the causes of happiness. May they all be free from attachment and anger, feeling close to some and distant from others. May we all have the opportunities to practice, to listen to teachings, to meet inspiring teachers, to read authentic texts and sutras like the Lalitavistara. May we all find spiritual companionship, a sangha to practice with. May we have confidence in our own basic goodness and in others' basic goodness. That's important. And then a great bodhisattva dedication is also to say that may anybody who has any kind of connection with us, any kind, by remembering, criticizing, praising, harming, or helping us in any way, having any connection with us, may it act as a cause for them to be happy and to awaken. So in other words, whatever. May, in other words, our presence in the world not be meaningless for anybody. May it be highly meaningful for anybody who has anything to do with us, so-called positive, so-called negative. May our teachers have long and healthy lives. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama continue to inspire many and live, as he says, for at least another 20 years or so. May the Chinese soften their attitude towards His Holiness. They have more Buddhists in their country than any other country in the world. So may they be well and happy. May our own late teacher again show the face of a reincarnation. So Rinpoche may continue to guide those who are fortunate enough to be guided by him in whenever he appears again. May Tushita continue to be of great benefit to living beings and fulfill the prayer of Rinpoche that Rinpoche made here, that whoever steps into Tushita here in Delhi, may it bring peace and happiness to their mind. May it be beneficial for them. Rinpoche made this prayer. So as a great being, it definitely will have effects, powerful beneficial effects. May all who are helping Tushita have long and healthy lives, be very happy and harmonious, and continue to develop this center very beautifully. May it act as a small beacon of inspiration, an oasis of peace, tranquility, wisdom in the heart of these teeming multitudes of Delhi. May the great compassion arise in us, the bodhicitta aspiration arise in us. Where it has already arisen, may it not decline, may it grow more and more. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry we couldn't take more. I spoke a lot. Tomorrow, let's see how far we get. There'll be more time for discussion also. So very grateful to everybody. Please have a safe journey home and so forth. Yeah, thank you.